Hello everyone, thank you for coming. So it's a pleasure to have you all here tonight, well this evening, not yet night, but soon. As you know, this is a co-hosted event by our friends from Espeo Blockchain and Crypto World Zug. We're gonna have later the introduction by Paweł from Espeo, and he will let you know exactly who gonna be the speakers and the topic. But as you know, the main topic is gonna be blockchain and life science. So my introduction will be for the Crypto World Zug Association, which is the association we have formed last year in the city of Zug, the Crypto Valley. And as you see, well, we have shifted a little bit the activities to Zurich because a matter of the economical importance of the city. As you know, in Zug there is a lot of companies, but mainly most of them are just briefkasten, so just a postal office. And I think, well, the main activities happen here in Zurich, and that's why also we are really proud that in our board we also have the crypto lawyer, Chris Murer, who works here at Baker McKenzie. Baker McKenzie has been really generous to offer us today this venue. So, well, as I say, this is our association. We are actually right now doing a rebranding, so we hope that the next time we're going to show you everything fresh. So it's going to be a new website, also a new logo, but the team is going to be the same. So I would like to also introduce you now to the rest of the team. So my name is Marcos Benítez. I'm the General Secretary. I'm since the beginning, I would say, from the association. Really proud to be here. And well, it's also quite happy to see the evolution of the whole ecosystem. For 1.5 years, it has changed quite a lot. So we started with some meetups talking about trading, mainly. That was just a group of friends talking about crypto and the speculation part. And we have, well, evolved quite a lot. And today we have this topic of life science, and we have also the support from big companies like Espeo, and also, well, Baker McKenzie giving us the place, also from Microsoft. So we see more and more the big players coming into the scene. So I want to introduce the rest of the team. So please come here, and I will let them talk. So Chris, he's the crypto lawyer. So I will give you the mic.
Crypto lawyer is as exciting as it should be, right? People also call me Crypto Chris. You can just call me Chris if you want. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll pass it on to Luca.
Well, thank you, Chris. I see many familiar faces, some others not, but it's normal. First of all, Marcos, this would not have been possible without you tonight, and to you. I think a quick round of applause, even before you listen to the content, is appropriate. Also because there's drinks and food outside, so at least they deserve that. Come on. I am Luca Aiken, the undeserving president of this great association. It's not that great, but it's getting bigger. And we are, Marcos said, rebranding, but this is going to be also an activity that will see you guys engaged. So keep following us, keep following the meetup. Let's mingle afterwards. I know you're not here to hear me babble, but this is a quick introduction. Nicola.
Yes, thank you. So I'm the financial guy, not really. So I'm the treasurer for the association, so I take care of the finance.
He's the most important guy in the
room. So if you have some extra coins, just see me afterwards. I'm happy to get them. So I'm also organizing meetups like this one. So this is great to see a full room like that. And I'm happy to hear also what you want to hear next. So come to me and we'll be done.
So my name is Bart. I'm the vice president since president was taken. And I'm mostly in charge of the marketing aspect. So if there is any linking up you want to do, just come talk to me afterwards and we'll set you up. So enjoy this evening, have a good time, and onwards with the first presentation, I would say.
So just a few words. I'm very thankful to see a lot of you guys, and I'm also very thankful for all the partners to help me organize this event. So generally the whole idea was to create the place for the innovation and blockchain and talk more about the industry-focused events. So the previous was more about the technical and business aspects of the blockchain. Today we are meeting the life science enthusiasts, and there will be also some talks generally about the blockchain industry. So the first presentation will be me and my colleague from Espeo Blockchain, Marcin Rzetecki, will be talk more about the digital transformation in the blockchain industry and also innovation. And the next presentation will be more about a little gamification of the blockchain and cryptocurrency to check your knowledge, what you know about this, and there will be also some funny challenges. We would like to also, I would like to also let you know that we have the contest during this event. So basically, the people that you think and their speech would be the best, please just take the photo, put on your LinkedIn or the Twitter, and tag with the hashtag Espeo, and we would like to give you also some interesting awards. So first of all, there will be the free 3 hours consultation about your blockchain or not only blockchain project. So we'd like to help you on the IT stuff and some ideas for the architecture. We also have some nice t-shirt, the stuff that you can try it out that came from Poland, or some special sweets. So yeah, I hope that you will enjoy this part as well. And afterwards we go like more deeply in the biopharma with the Paul Kolhaas from Molecule. So he will present how to trade on the drugs and take some stuff from the financial industry into the biopharma. And afterwards we'll go more in the panel, which I will be moderating. We will talk about the challenges of the healthcare, also presented with one of the speakers, Oksana Souter, more on the UK aspects of the healthcare industry and innovation in the operation. Also with Hakan Atabas, who will talk a little how works the Turkish market and comparing with the Swiss one, more deeply in the technical aspects of the blockchain and implementation in the life science industry. We will also have our friend from Microsoft, Henri Dethier, and he will talk about the more corporate aspects of the implementation of the blockchain and also automatization for the corporates. So generally what struggles Novartis and Roche in the life science industry. And yeah, and we'll also talk with some general speaking what we can improve in that industry. So hopefully you enjoy the stuff, and afterwards we will have very nice apéro with the special crypto wines that came from the Crypto Valley. This is the white wine, and the red wine they are for friends, so more that you have some fun gathering new friends in the blockchain innovation industry. So, and there are also some stuff to eat. Hopefully you will like it. It was homemade, prepared by our friends from the Track for Friends. So if you would like to try it more, you can visit them on the Zurich Street Food Festival. So the Silvia is there, and happy to hear some opinions how you like the catering today. So yeah, I would like to start or ask afterwards on the stage my friend Marcin. So we're the main organizers together with Crypto World Zug. And Espeo it came like a company that is doing the software, bespoke software solutions for the different industries. And I'm today with my friend Marcin Rzetecki. He came from Poland. I'm based right now in Zurich for almost 1 year, helping this company in expansion on the Swiss market and also helping in the digital transformation for the life science industry. So we started 11 years ago in Poznan and Helsinki. So on the two markets together, so our founders, they working with one of the biggest marketing company in Finland and one of the biggest in Scandinavia. And they were asked to start like more complex works. So that was the beginning, like normal software solution, mostly on the front-end side. And afterwards we were more expanding. So we added the office not only in Poznan and Helsinki, but also in San Francisco. So we have also one person that is helping us there. We have also another colleague which is helping us in Dubai. I'm in Switzerland, and yeah. So actually we're almost over 1 year in Zurich here, helping the companies on the IT side. There's also one of our clients here, Daniel, they're doing the digitalization of the Spitex industry, so trying to put the healthcare solutions more in the easy way for taking care about the patient and people that they're looking for help. So curious like more about the stuff connected with the blockchain, but we are generally in blockchain just almost 4 years on the market. So we started with some ICO startups, mostly from the US, and afterwards there was also some from Finland, Dubai, and Switzerland. But generally we're helping in realizing core projects. So from the prototyping till MVP solution, most of our clients, they are very long term. So we have like 10 years clients, 8 years clients that they're still working with us. And most of them we help to do everything on the IT side. So to create the products from the very scratch. And for some that they can focus on the business use cases. And just for some of them we just help on the side with some things with the development. So generally on the blockchain side we are doing mostly things connected with the Ethereum solution, also a little of the Stellar and Hyperledger. And yeah, we also done some audits and help some projects in doing the whole white papers on the technical side. So we're doing from the very initiative projects to the very complex to engage our clients that they can focus on the business. We're also doing some workshops that helps our clients to understand more the technology, and this IT consulting that is in our contest, it generally like a preview of the workshops that we're usually doing for the clients. So usually it's like from 1 till 3 days that we are helping them building the MVP, doing some prototypes, and link this with the business. So yeah, and right now to the main topic of our meetup, the life science. We just started a few months ago, more focusing on that industry and tried some articles, how it looks like. Generally in my presentation I would like to focus most on the Swiss market because we are here, and I'm also a big fan of the Switzerland, what we can do here, because still these markets have a very big potential for the digitalization and also for the innovation, which I show later and also some graphics. I also write the article generally, which describes how it looks like the Swiss life science industry. Some of the graphic and charts will be presented here as well. So what says the biggest players on the market in Switzerland? So both Roche and Novartis, they agree that the digitalization is really the crucial part for the Swiss industry. The important thing that these two guys, so the Severance one from Roche and Vasant Narasimhan, they are both quite young CEOs, so they are just from 2018. So they both agreed as well that we can talk a lot about the digitalization from the corporate, but every one of us knows that there are like two layers. So one layer is that the things we would like to change and what is to improve, and they are very aware of this, that is big potential for the AI in implementation, and also very important topic is the big data that we can use to make more efficiency on the market, but it still will take a lot of time. So I have many friends in the both companies that they took like all the stages, from the project managers, IT, in the finance, HR, and also on marketing and operation, and they both agree that this is they hope that it will be great years for the both companies, but it's just the beginning. So they need at least 3 years to see a big impact on the companies. And also it shows how slow they are because they are corporate, so it's very understandable. Even both Roche and Novartis, they don't really have that any blockchain department. So it also shows that the life science industry is quite tricky because the potential of the blockchain is very big there, but probably is one of the most conservative industry that will take to the game much later, like for example finance. We've seen like JP Morgan start with their own internal coin for the trading, but life science is still on the quite longer journey than there. So why Switzerland, and why I really believe that this is one of the key markets in the world for the life science, mostly because it's gathering everything what could be helpful for the success in the particular industry. So the amount of the investment in the R&D is one of the actually the biggest in the world. Also on the second and the third place, it's not on this chart. There are the city in the Denmark, so also was presented here, Öresund, and also Finland as a generally, and Boston from USA. So as you see, like over 70%. So in total, 570.8 million francs are invested in the startups from the life science industry. I'm quite also connected with the investment industry because I worked in the past and also helping currently investors and the projects raising funds. And what I'm observing here at the biggest investments, also based on the report that you have here, the Swiss Venture Capital reports, presents that the most companies that they're receiving money in Switzerland, they are from the life science sector. But still as well, the interesting thing is that this money, they are not coming really from the Swiss people, so mostly there are investments from other countries, like from USA or from China, which also shows the report that the biggest parts of the people that emigrate to the Switzerland from countries outside the EU, they're exactly the same nation. So Americans and Chinese, because they really believe in that market, which I'm also think that Switzerland is the place for the world, because the people that are coming here, they would like to invest. They are very happy about the also regulation, what is in Switzerland. So Yeah, and also the biggest part of the patents there in Switzerland. So for, as you see, 112 for per million inhabitants. And some people they also call Switzerland as the brain of the Europe because of this a lot of patents and also a lot of talents that you will also see later. I don't have this on the chart, but Switzerland and Swiss universities are on the really top ranks in the world in terms of the highest education in the life science sector. And also you'll see later that the employees that are very efficient. So in the region Basel, this is like the employees that are most efficient in the world. And yeah, as I mentioned, so Switzerland has a whole ecosystem for being the greatest place for everything what can happen in the life science. So there are a lot of researchers and good founders. Startups, I would consider that is quite less than it should be. So it's still like for the very good projects, and it's much less than comparing with the financial industry. There are also a lot of VCs, especially here in Basel and the French part, like Lausanne and Geneva. So there are a lot of VCs that they are very interested in investing the projects connected with the life science and also with the social impact. And corporates, of course, so I mentioned before. Okay, so some few words about the growing market. So the numbers of the companies in Switzerland in the life science sector, they are growing every year, more and more. So based on the Swiss biotech, so increase is over 65% in the years 2006 and 2017, and even like in 2018 and 2019, this amount is growing much more faster. So that gives a good potential on this. What also is quite interesting that both of the companies they are in private and public sector. So both of the sectors they are quite competitive in that market. So there is no domination between the private or the public sector. And business areas is also interesting. What I find out cooperating with some projects here, there is of course the biggest domination of the biopharma, also because many projects they're cooperating very strongly with Roche and Novartis. But there are also a lot of very interesting advising companies that I met in the last months, and also it gives the big hope for that industry. That's more and more meetups like this, they are coming, and the people they like to talk about the life science and healthcare, and more bigger projects they're coming into the game. And as you see, they are quite diversified. So there are many projects that are focusing on the very different aspects of the life science. And from the financial results, so I don't want to talk a lot about this, but as you see, the market is increasing more and more, and also many people they're becoming the opportunities to have the jobs. Also, the big corporations they give very good conditions for the interns that they're coming from the different countries and different cities. Mostly, of course, they're based in Basel, so they give opportunities to move to Basel. And as you see, there was the talk about this productivity in Switzerland, so it's very high rank, which also, in my opinion, gives the big chance for the digitalization and improvement of that industry. So if the productiveness is very high, so also it means that the people would go very forward to create automated solutions to make the work more efficient and to create something new in that industry. And as I also observed, talking with my many friends that they are Swiss and investors that they are in the industry, so the people there really believe in Switzerland is the place to realize these dreams. with the life science. Okay, so as I talked a little before, so in my opinion, the future of the life science, it could be very bright, but it also have like some difficulties and two sides. So on the one side is a very great place for the researchers, which are always very important, and the patent issue also very tricky. Just once I seen one nice movie generate the series about how to disrupt the biopharma industry, and also how to play the nice game with the big corporates. What if? So you can watch it if you want. So it also shows how tricky is that that industry in terms of the patenting. And on the other side, also the investors, they expect a lot of research and good development of the project. But on the other side, the investment that you need to put in the project, for example, in drug development, is very big. So creating the drugs is just the one issue, but the second is to put this on the market. So this is also why mostly the biggest players, they can afford on this. And also regulation and anxiety of the how the particular solutions will be worked on the market. It needs time, and also you need to prove on the many tests how your solution works on that market. But I also think that this industry is very nice because you need to be quite more niche. So it's not only enough to have a great experience on the corporate side. You also need to go more in the, let's say, the startup approach, and trying to go much faster on the market. And on the other side, there will be many challenges, mostly because you need plenty of data to confirm your potential clients that you will deliver the product, which in my opinion, this is the biggest problem in the startup industry, that they raised plenty of millions, but afterwards they have the problem with the sales. So here, probably it's also a very big issue. So I would like to thank you for that part, and I will give the voice to my colleague Marcin.
Hello. Hi. As Paweł said, my name is Marcin Rzetecki, and I represent blockchain, Espeo Blockchain software company, where I work as a blockchain and software consultant. I have IT background, and the last 3 years I'm focusing on the blockchain technology, and I'm very happy to be here today with you. And I would like to today about blockchain technology and the healthcare industry project, which we have been implementing in Espeo company. I'm start say a little bit about development of internet, and next I speak a little bit about differences between public and private blockchain, and after I speak about Espeo project which we made. So I have found some interesting picture made by IBM, and the first pictures we see the internet before 2015, and where the internet was closed and centralized. And now we have open and centralized internet. That means we have something like data center, Google, Amazon, something like this. And the last picture show us the internet after 2025, where the internet will be open and then centralized. And this is very important to understand what the internet looks like in the future. And the amount of the data the last few years increasing. And that means in the next few years, the centralized data center will not be able to transfer all data. That means we have to change thinking about internet. The internet will be decentralized. And decentralized communication needs trust and safety managed data. And the blockchain and IoT devices is the best solution for this case, because blockchain gives us safe and transparent data, managed data. Okay, in IT solution in medical industry is not popular nowadays. That means this sector is the best for the new technology, something like blockchain, IoT devices, or AI technology. And as Paweł said, we cooperate with a lot of companies from Finland, Switzerland, Dubai, the USA, and this cooperation gives us this cooperation help us to realize what's potential is in the blockchain industry and medical healthcare industry. So we have been starting specialized in blockchain, IT solution, and healthcare industry. So I said a little bit about what the internet looks like and about the medical industry. Now I want to say a little bit about blockchain technology, the difference between public and the private blockchain, because our POC project which we made in our company are based on private and the public blockchain. So today, after 10 years when the Bitcoin blockchain has been founded, we have two kinds of the blockchain. The first of them is a public blockchain, where the access to the blockchain have everyone, but not everyone can read the data. So the most popular public blockchain at this time, I think it's Bitcoin and Ethereum. And on the other hand, we have private blockchain, where the access to the blockchain is authorized. So that means the authorized people can get the access to the blockchain. Okay, so we have some company which have two kinds of the blockchain, private and the public blockchain, in one company. And this company named Waves. They have public blockchain, something like the Waves, and Vostok is their private blockchain. And so this is, now I want to say a little bit about our first POC project which we create. Today, the lack of data, today we have a lot of problem with duplicated data in medical industry. That means if we go to the first hospital, for example, and we create data, and for example, the next day where we go to the next hospital, we create the same data. So the data is duplicated. And this data is processed by external institutions. So, but it should be other. That means it should this data should be processed by our because this is not our data. And we created a solution based on the Hyperledger Fabric. Hyperledger Fabric it's supported by IBM. And Hyperledger, it's open source project developing by Linux Foundation since December 2015. And as we can see on the first picture, we have patients, and each patient are based on the blockchain. That means they have public and the private key. The public key we can use to identify the patient, and we have the private key when we can use to sign the transaction on the blockchain. And for example, if we go to the first hospital and we created new data, we can sign this data and save on the blockchain. And if we go to the next hospital, we can share this data to this hospital, and we can add new data. But this data will be saved on the blockchain, and that means we have one place where the data, medical data records, are saved. So we don't duplicate the data. We have one place, and this is the solution helps to our client. Well, so, it should be some logo our client. We have been cooperating this year with some client from Finland. It's Biomenzio. Biomenzio is some company which have a massive project, IT project. That means this project helps detect drugs in saliva. And this is a very big project because we have traditional IT solutions, something like front-end based on React, back-end based on Node.js, and on the other hand we have IoT devices where we can communicate it with our software and using API. And in the middle we have our POC project where we save all data from IoT devices on the blockchain. And our client can manage this data safe and transparency. Okay, and the second project which we create in our company is supply chain. And this picture shows us how it looks like the traditional supply chain communication. At the beginning we have producer which dispatch products. So we need some company, a transparent company, which allow the products for the producer. And usually they can, for example, use mobile application to scan the QR code and sign the smart contract and save the information on the blockchain. And next, during the transport, we can use IoT devices to save information about the products during the transport. For example, temperature, localization. And the next, where we deliver the products to the client, we have the same situation. We can take the mobile application, scan the QR code, where we save information about producer, about transport company, about delivery, and we can sign the smart contract and save the information on the blockchain. And this is our POC project which we create, and we can see 3 screens. And the middle screen show us this process. That means register a product, go to the transport, and go to deliver person. And the last one is to verify the product, and we can see all information about this product. The first screen show us QR code scanning the information about producer, about transport company, about producer and product. And the last picture show us information about smart contract, and we can sign this smart contract on the blockchain. Okay, so from my side, that's all. Thank you very much. Paweł?
We lost him.
So just also a few words about the blockchain propulsion. This is also one of the partners for our meetup. So there is the acceleration program that is supporting the startups, so generally end-to-end solutions. So Espeo is as a technology partner. We also heard the projects in terms of the legal stuff, marketing, and also how to acquire the investors. So this is like for a little more mature projects, so not for the very initial funding, because we're also taking some fees for helping and how to also adjust the presentation very properly for the investors. So yeah, if you would have like any questions in terms of this acceleration program, you can ask me as well. Unfortunately, the CEO of the blockchain proportion cannot come today, so we would have some chance to talk with him. But with pleasure, I will link you. So if you have any startup that is looking for funding and help on the marketing or IT or legal, so you can we can talk about that issue. There will be also on the Crypto Valley conference, which will be in 2 weeks. So you can see them on the stand. And yeah, so I would like to thank you very much for your attention in that part. So if you have any questions, you can approach me or Marcin. We'll be also here till the end of the event. And also for some people that they're interested in these free workshops and to consult your project, so you can approach us after the meetup, and we are very happy to talk about this. And because you are on our meetup, so you are on some preferred terms as well. So yeah, and we have this contest, so please remember. And I would like to invite on the stage right now the Chris from Swissborg. I also would like to thank them very much for their help on the promotion and support the event. And Stefan, they will prepare a contest game for you to check a little your knowledge about the blockchain, crypto, also mining and some other stuff. So they will explain all the conditions, and yeah, we have some rules for the best players. So thank you.
Thank you, Paweł, for the organization and the invitations. Let me just try to put my slide on. It might be easier. Alright, so where was it? Okay. Just have to wait until our friends open. No, definitely. Sorry. Oh, yeah, yes, here we go. All right. So I guess you all understand what is blockchain now, right now. Is that correct? Oh, yeah. Maybe not. So one thing, can someone give me a good definition about blockchain? Please, go ahead.
Database.
Yes. What else? That's a good start. What else? Decentralized, I would say. That's a second very important word. And secure.
Immutable.
And immutable. Perfect. And after that, you know, what would be for you the ancestor of blockchain? I'm sure you have all, not all, but most of you have used it. Oh, even further away. I would go even further away than that.
SharePoint.
I have an idea, but maybe my idea was more about, you might have heard about it, Napster. You know, when you were young, what were you doing? You were trying to download any kind of video, movie or something. And what were you doing? You were just sharing data with another person. So basically it was a peer-to-peer network when one person shared data and another one downloaded it. And that's for me really the essence of blockchain. So like, blockchain exists for me much before 2008 when Satoshi Naka came with his white paper. So if we go a teeny bit one step deeper, one was the birth of Bitcoin. You all know that, I guess. When was the first Bitcoin mined?
1st of January 2009.
Right, so remember that. First Bitcoin was mined on the 1st of January 2009. Then, everybody now is very skeptical about Bitcoin. We have them for more than 10 years and everybody like, no, I don't believe in Bitcoin, I don't believe in blockchain. So, look here at the quote of a very famous person say, the phone, never gonna work. Cars, never gonna work. Computer, never gonna work. And the last one even, Steve Ballmer said, iPhone, there is no chance that the iPhone is gonna get any significant market shares. People tend to be very, very pessimistic towards new technology. And what I say is people say exactly the same towards blockchain now. And I hope they're ever going to be wrong in a couple of years, because we're going to have a mass adoption. But what's the real difference between blockchain? If you go into traditional system, you always have the CEO of the company, so that have the powers, and to whom he answers to the shareholder, and basically has all his employees below. But that is not exactly the model and the philosophy of the blockchain. The philosophy behind blockchain is DAO, which means decentralized autonomous organization. And how is that really applied? Basically, you will have the developers that work on a code. You will have an exchange that help you trade crypto. You might have a user that say, oh, how can I use blockchain? And you might have a miner that help you verify the blocks. So the big difference in this system is you have no hierarchy. Because if you ask someone, for example, who was the first Uber driver, nobody will ever know. Who was the first user of Facebook? Who was the first user of Airbnb? Nobody will remember. But imagine, without this person, this company will never exist. Whereas in blockchain, if you are one of the first users, you have token. And if the network you part in grew up, like for example the Bitcoin network, you can have substantial benefit by being one of the first users. But now we're going to have Stefan giving us a little bit more information about what is mining and how it is important in blockchain.
Good evening, thanks for having me. So as Chris already told you, I'll try to explain a little bit more about mining and what's it got to do with blockchain. So basically, I'm from Austria, I'm representing an Austrian company. I'm a managing partner of Wachsende Werte GmbH, which is a mining company. And basically, when speaking of mining, this is what lots of people just get in their imagination. This is like a traditional mining farm, right? This is what it looks like. And compared to that, this is what crypto mining looks like. So it's quite a difference, I would say. And I guess by now you should, for those who haven't before, already know what blockchain is. So basically, when we speak of a chain, we need to take a deeper look at the single elements actually forming the chain, right? So we have these single blocks, and each of them contains data, contains the hash and the hash of the previous block, which then is linked together, forming the so-called blockchain, which would then look like that. So we have each single block linked together. As I said, each of them containing a hash and containing the previous hash. First block is the Genesis block. You would have like a couple of zeros as it's the first one, right? So, summarized together, we speak of a distributed ledger, which is completely open to everybody. As I said, it starts with the Genesis block, and each of those blocks can be seen as a pending transaction just waiting to be validated and also accepted by the whole blockchain, by the whole network. And once one of these blocks is created, its hash is being calculated, right? So is it even something which you could consider as secure? Is it legitimate to use it? Basically, these hashes I told you about, they serve as digital fingerprints, right? They identify each specific block. Then we also have to speak of proof of work, which for me as a miner is quite an important thing. What it stands for is that you basically have to prove that you did a certain amount of work for each single block to be accepted by the network. And as I said, each block contains the hash of the previous one, which makes it kind of impossible to change the order they run, right? So if you would want to do that, you would need to regenerate all the successors of a block or all the previous blocks. And this, of course, is protecting a blockchain from tampering, right? So this is, I would say, kind of a nearly impossible safety factor to overcome. And we've also heard it, we speak about decentralized network. So it's a distributed ledger, as I said, open to anybody and also based on consensus of the whole network. So as soon as a block is created, it also needs to be verified by all the nodes forming this network. And yeah, once again, to mention, if anyone tries to corrupt a transaction, these nodes wouldn't arrive at consensus and would just reject the transaction itself, right? So, yeah, you would basically need to redo all the proof of work, all the work which is done to calculate the block, if you would like to change something and to do any kind of fraud. I guess we're all share the same opinion about the blockchain being something considered as important. To me it is, and it potentially could transform very basic pillars of our society. I'm sorry about the little mistakes in the look. It's yeah, was kind of a little mess up before. It's influencing the way our economy, governance systems, and also business works. And last but not least, it also changes understanding of trade, understanding of ownership, and also understanding of trust, right? And all these things together, you could sum up as cryptocurrency being someone which is used to facilitate trade. So in the end, it's nothing more than a collective bookkeeping system, which is distributed via the internet, neither closed or in control of just one single party, and public and distributed across all the participants of the network. So finally, speaking about mining, this is why I'm actually here for, is quite a simple thing actually. So as I said, we want to facilitate trade, so one person tries to send any kind of currency to the other one, and thereby you need miners. You need somebody who is actually verifying these transactions and adding them to the network, to the public ledger records. And because we do that, we also get a reward, which is called the block reward, plus the transaction fees, which is kind of neglectable, but I would say block reward is what we're interested in. Up to now, we speak exactly of 12.5 bitcoins per each single block we find and can add to the network. For those of you who have heard of halvening, this happens about every 210,000 blocks, which means that then it's just half of the value we get for each single block to be added. So why do we need miners? Actually, to verify transactions and to add them to the network, to maintain the network, also to provide network security. As I told you, the larger the network gets, so the more of these miners are connected to it, the bigger it gets, of course, and therefore the harder it gets to fool. So basically, you need to know about a few key factors. We need to take in consideration the energy which is needed for miners. You need to be aware of the source of energy these days, talking of sustainability, right? You need to take care of the used power. You need to know what you can use and what you better not use. And you need to understand the importance of the hash rate, so the power to calculate how many hashes can be calculated per second actually. The difficulty, so how difficult it is to find one of these blocks. Yeah, the value of the mine currency. And in the end, there's lots of hidden costs, right? You need to pay rents, insurance, maintenance, security, and also electricity network usage. And all these things together are determining whether mining is profitable or not. So how to start? This is how we do it for our company. You just order the equipment, so it's like a little box you power up and you put together. You ship those to the mining farms. You need to professionally start them up and maintain them, of course, which is what we do in the end. And then your mining coins are just dispersed. And just a few factors about who we are and what we do. As I said, we're an Austrian crypto mining company. We're up and running since late 2016. Up to now, we've got a little more than 600 customers and having a historical turnover of 5.5 million since we started. And right now, given the current state of the market, when we do ASIC mining, we speak of 10 to 11% of revenue per month. For the FPGA mining, about the same. And what makes us kind of special is that we actually do exclusive hardware and software development, mainly now software development, making sure that we use miners nobody else does. Yeah, this is it from my side, and I hand over to Chris again. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I hope you understand everything now. So what I want to share a teeny bit with you is a different application, what you can use the blockchain for. So as we said, we have Facebook. No, what you do on Facebook, if you post something, who gets richer? The shareholder of Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. But that's not fair. So someone has created a new system called Steemit, where whenever you post and you have likes, you are the direct person rewarded for your content. That's one of the person who have application of blockchain. I'm sorry I have to be fast because we're short on time. Second way that I also like is a new browser that exists is Brave. This one, you know, whenever you use Google Chrome or whatever, they just get all the data that you have from them to give you ads and so on. And Brave is a blockchain project that try to avoid taking too much information from you, and they reward you basically on the number of ads that you have, which I think is a very interesting concept. So you watch an ad, you get rewarded, not only the person that posted. And I just want to show or share a couple of things about the project I'm working on. It's Swissborg. So I'm gonna skip this up because it's more to say that before I was working in a private banking service in the top of the pyramid, but our project is aimed to serve everyone. The idea is to make a universal access to wealth management to everyone. And our first role to do that is to teach people about blockchain. What is blockchain? And you shouldn't be afraid about blockchain. And one way to do that is to have a game. So take a picture of this, because with that you can after that download our game. And what is good with this game is you have to earn Bitcoin with zero risk. So who of you have Bitcoin or any crypto in the room? Yeah, that's quite a lot. But we can improve that. So the way for the other person, what we do inside this app is you will have content, for example, what is Bitcoin, how to launch your product, which is interesting on education. You will have also information for the trader, where you will have general trend, community per trend, and the Swissborg advisor. So you know how to forecast Bitcoin and what to do. Because the purpose of this game is you have to decide if after 24 hours the Bitcoin is going to be up or down. And after that, every time we have a new user in the game, we have 1 franc in the price pool. Right now the price pool is 18,000 francs. But imagine that, because we have 18,000 players, but imagine we reach 50,000. The price will start to be interesting. So that's a good way for you to start earning Bitcoin for free. And after that, that's our next product, but if I stay on it, I think I'm gonna be killed by Paweł. So right now, I'm just gonna go on something else. Okay, just me. So if you haven't catch it, my name is Christophe. So I'm in charge of business development at Swissborg. And right now, we're gonna go for a small quiz, as promised. So to see if you have been listening well to the presentation. So in this way, it's very easy. Oh, sorry. So I just want you to open your phone, go on kahoot.it. So very easy, nothing else. You go on kahoot.it, open your phone. You don't have to download anything. Just go on kahoot.it and type the pin numbers. And we're gonna have a 5-question game. The purpose is to be the fastest and correct as well. And there is prize, don't forget there is prize for the winner. So guys, just take up your phone, type kahoot.it and get ready. So Paweł, we give them what, 30 seconds to connect?
Yeah, give them 45.
45, okay, he's carrying with you. So 15 players, that's pretty good. Go for it. We can do better than that. 21, 22, 24. Oh, we have some player here. Nice. So you give the start, Paweł. Whenever you want, I press start.
Yeah. Okay, let's start.
Let's start. All right. So last call. Okay, we start. So, are you ready? So, what is blockchain? You will have to answer on your phone. Be careful, the time is coming down. 2 seconds, 1 second. All right. So, who has put a centralized database? That's the opposite. It's exactly decentralized. Sorry, wrong answer. Next one. Yeah, I'm stressing. I say 10 seconds because you want a short one. So, is blockchain secure? Tricky question. Were you listening? So, yes, exactly it is because of the consensus protocol. Perfect. We see that you are a good listener. So, right now we have Matt in the lead, followed by Gigi. Be careful. So only 2 points behind. So, when was the first Bitcoin mined? All right. How have you not correct? I told it many times, 2009. I thought I was clear enough. Sorry. So Matt is still in the lead. Gigi following. Okay. 4th question. We'll see. Be careful. We'll see if you made a good presentation, Stefan. Yeah, very good. Very good. You understand it. Next one. So Matt still is Matt in the lead. Oh, where is Gigi? Well, he was not listening to the conversation, I guess. And now, what is Swissborg? I hope you get all right. All right, I made it a bit easy for you because there was 3 correct answers. But who put Rafael Nadal? We all like Roger Federer in Switzerland. Come on, guys. And now we're gonna see who is the winner. So Matt, congratulations. I don't know who is Matt. Okay, so you will get a prize. Congratulations. Followed by Bart and Paweł. So that one also for me, and I hope you learn something about blockchain and Bitcoin.
So you can come generally on the stage to take some awards from us.
So, Paweł, I don't know who's next after me, honestly.
Okay.
So you have
the Matt, Bart, and Paweł. They can all come on the stage to take.
Oh yes, the winner. Yeah. Bart.
Yes. Yes. Who's Matt?
And if Matt doesn't show up, you can take that as well.
So who is Matt?
You played. Yeah, of course.
So what size of the T-shirt you have? L, M. Yes.
Well, give him 2.
It's lunch.
I'll probably
I can make even 6 more interesting for you guys. You have an Ethereum wallet. You have an Ethereum wallet. So come to me afterwards. We can maybe arrange something.
or
I can give you a small airdrop of CHSB token.
okay.
So, Paweł, the floor is back to you again.
Okay, thank you very much. So, hope that you enjoyed the contest, and right now we will go more in the corporate industry. So, I would like to present you the main specialist from Microsoft on the blockchain and cloud solutions, Henri. So, we'll welcome you on the stage, and he will say you more stuff about the implementation aspects in the corporates on the life science industry. So,
thank you, Paweł. Put the slides. Oh, we can do without. So I hope you all have Swissborg tokens after this game. Perfect. So my name is Henri Dethier. I'm a cloud specialist of Microsoft, specialized on blockchain. So basically helping Swiss enterprise customers addressing blockchain as a topic, how they can implement it, how they can make the process more efficient with it. Do they really need blockchain? Sometimes they are quite advanced, so we have a deep dive discussion. Sometimes they have no clue, or the worst case, they just want to do it for marketing reasons. And we don't sell blockchain. Microsoft, we try to rather help them using cloud technologies. So we say maybe blockchain is not the solution. But as an introduction, and in this kind of discussion, it's always how do we start having a blockchain discussion, and then how do we start having a blockchain discussion in the healthcare and life science industry? Well, what I learned from experience is that when you start this kind of discussion, it's important to not start too much in the technology or starting from the technology. And especially from Microsoft's perspective, that's a great learning because we are a technology provider originally. So what we try to do is to start really from the use case, from the core. There was a good slides, by the way. So we start to start really, do you have really a use case? Does it really make sense? And then we see the specifics. What kind of consensus, what kind of governance, what kind of ledger, how do you really build that? But once you have a clear use case. That's why, and this should be the first slide, right? How do we approach that? And I guess if you manage to open the PDF, it's not a PowerPoint, you cannot change that. It's a standard format. So
I can just stay like that.
Yeah.
If Microsoft says that, we have to believe you, right?
Yeah. I have a disclaimer. So just leave it. So basically, blockchain is a trust engine. It gives trust to a process, to your use case, where you just have a barrier, a lack of trust, where and when you cannot solve this trust issue by traditional digital methods or physical methods. That's what it is. And the cost of this lack of trust, what some people in the financial industry call transaction costs. Well, this is the cost you can, for the business case, having reduced by using blockchain. Okay? So second thing that's important before we jump in the two use cases I'm going to present here is what do we speak about? What is this kind of networks? And it's really important to think about networks because an IT system, right, is as fast as the slowest of its components. A network, on the other hand, is as fast as the fastest of its components. That's the paradigm shift in this entire technology.
The problem is, what are we really talking about when we talk about networks? And that's where the confusion, especially in enterprise, starts when talking about blockchain. Because we identify two types of totally different scenarios. First one, we are in the public blockchains, starting, of course, with Bitcoin, and then they added the applicative layer on the top. So that's really not enterprise ready nowadays. And maybe sometimes not enterprise friendly at all. It removes the middleman, so some companies are saying, look, I'm the middleman. Where can I keep or adapt my business model where I'm disintermediate, where there is no compliance, where I cannot just adapt my process? How do I fit in the picture? That's why in the current state, this is really a scenario where we say, look, this is maybe not the best fit for the enterprise context in today. Lack of format, lack of standards, lack of scalability, lack of collaboration in this space. So that's really also the token economics. For some companies, they don't want to pay for transactions. They don't want to pay for the mining. They just want to use as many transactions as they want in the system. So for those players, we say, look, public blockchain is not what you need. For your model, for your use case, we would go more for a private or a consortium. But then when it gets really tricky, because some will say, oh, let's start private. Right? Private blockchain is perfect, no? We plug in our ERP a blockchain and we have blockchain. That's where we say, look, if you really only need a private blockchain, then blockchain is maybe not the solution. Maybe you can just solve it with a traditional database. Maybe you can just use to the full extent your existing ERP or CRM solution. Maybe you have institutional Chinese walls that prevent it from happening. So actually it's not a technological problem, it's more internal organizational problem. And all what that goes with it. So that's why private, it's complicated. That's why in enterprise space, consortium, and especially in healthcare, especially because of the fragmentation of this environment, especially because of the number of players that are involved in every single process, this is, let's say, the easiest way to go nowadays for the enterprise. As also a learning out of experience, where you have its permission, so you know the participants, they are vetted, compliance is in place, you can add an auditor, you can also choose the governance model, you're not imposed by one that is given, right? So you can plug the consensus, you can choose what kind of cryptography you will use. So all these different aspects are more suited for enterprise in the consortium. So it's really important when you're going to see a project in this industry to make the difference between these two models. I'm not saying they will not merge or they will not collaborate, but in the current status, there is this division. And there are different theories there, it's a big debate. So now talking about the use case. And that's valid for every industry. So when you can validate a blockchain use case? When does it make sense? Well, first of all, trust boundaries. So multiple parties working on the same data, they don't necessarily trust each other. So they have different interests, they have different costs. So my win is your loss. And they cannot, in the current model, just share data and it's fine. Right? They are competitors often, or they need to collaborate on the same data. So another thing is that the current process current steps is very manual, very inefficient, very costly. Because if it's a simple process to reduce, or if today it's fine like it is, you don't need blockchain. The business case is not valid. It's just fancy, but it's not valid. It's not a good use case. So don't start with it. Start where it makes sense, where you really can can measure the benefits. Because when you do a blockchain project, there's going to be so much cost associated to all the project management of such a project. Along the change management, the mentalities, changing the existing systems. So all these efforts are only going to be rewarded if you start with really a process that is today very slow, manual, and costs a lot. Because you have insurance costs, often you have fraud in this process, or you have litigation, then it makes sense, right? So those aspects make sense for any process where to qualify a blockchain use case. So now, blockchain. And the problem is that it becomes such a buzzword that people come and often say, yeah, but proof of work, that costs a lot, right? We cannot do that, it's not sustainable. But then you need to understand that, well, it's more an umbrella technology, and it is actually a technology, right? That's the origin of Bitcoin. But then, so many components maybe you need some, otherwise others you don't need. Some parts are not on blockchain, some parts are off-chain. You need the data in your blockchain. Actually, a blockchain is not a database, it's more governance of shared data. That's what is blockchain, it's not a database. So maybe you need some components and you don't need others, right? So it's not take it all or not, it's this kind of complexity. And this is also how Microsoft approached it, by saying, leveraging the cloud, you need some parts, and you can also combine other parts. Because if you really want to build an end-to-end blockchain application, well, you need IoT, you need artificial intelligence, you need certain forms of encryption, encryption in use. So let's say you want to share data, you do some computation on it, but at the same time you want to keep the data not in plain text, in ciphertext. That's what we enable with trusted encryption, trusted computation. So all of these things we want to choose. And this is also why we should not start a blockchain discussion, especially in healthcare, by starting, this is blockchain. More saying, what do you really need? And then we see what part do we need, and in the end, do we need blockchain, do we need part of it, do we need special consensus? It's really define a use case. That's going to define all of that. Paweł? And with this strategy, and this is why I'm not the billboard of Microsoft today, I'm just here with a clear message that the strategy that has been chosen by Microsoft the last decade in general with the cloud is especially valid with blockchain. Because it's not just software that is eating the world, it's open source that is eating the world. Open source in the blockchain communities, right? So that's why today, Vitalik is speaking at our developer conference saying, yes, Microsoft is embracing this open source community, it's helping us, it's helping the different tools, it's helping developers build first the infrastructure, the protocols, and tomorrow the applications with the cloud, with decentralized distributed cloud that goes in the same direction. So that's really our positioning. Second thing is, we don't try to build our own consortium or force customers or force any enterprise in a consortium. Should it be in healthcare or should it be in insurance, in banking? What we do is just that we said, we try to have any of those consortiums to scale, to have the valid technology, to have the valid consensus, to deploy in a valid manner. We're just here to help the partners they choose and the technology they choose. And the last thing where we're betting really is on identity. And there you also have already the link to healthcare, because in the end, there is one thing, it's to own your own data, personal data, and nothing is more personal than your health data, because that's really something you should be concerned, you should own. And if you need an answer there, decentralized identity is going to be the solution to address this thing, where you are not tied to a centralized directory or centralized institution that owns your data and just takes it for granted to have it, but where you own your data, you can host it where you want, you can monetize it, you can get incentivized if you share it for research, and this is really going to be the key in the next years, decentralized identity. And that's why Microsoft is working also in open source with the community to enable you to have decentralized identity and to share it with the applications, in this case, decentralized applications that you want. Okay, so that's also an area where we are really present. That's going to matter for the healthcare industry. So this is basically also to show that we don't do it alone. Microsoft doesn't have per se a blockchain solution. We don't have a ledger. We work with the ecosystem. And then when we go to a healthcare customer, we don't say, look, we have this solution, it works. It's a turnkey solution, plug in and it's fine. We try to really understand the use case as said, and then we try to see which startup, which organization, which unit has really developed something cool that we can help implement. See, this is really the winning approach to make blockchain happen in a meaningful, maybe slower way, but more intelligent, far from just marketing. And that, I think, for this topic is quite important. So let's go to the use cases now. And today, two use cases. The first one is track and trace for drugs along the supply chain. And the second is, I don't have dedicated slides for the second, but the second is more about the sharing of data, linking in the end to decentralized identity. So 3M, that's a public, I'm not saying anything here private, but they have the following problems, is that it costs the industry $200 billion a year just with false medications. So drugs of low quality that at some point of the long supply chain is implemented. So how do we really ensure that the drug is valid, and how do we do it also in an automated way, so they don't need to manually check every drug? And in this case, they went for shared ledger combined with IoT, combined with RFID, so that they had a QR code that was initiated at the beginning, and at each different distribution center or manufacturing unit, they added another QR code so they could scan and really track and trace the product. And if the QR code that was hashed after in the ledger, if they saw something invalid, the product would just be neglected, and there was a fee directly at which step the invalidation had happened. Automatic via smart contract, you could say, okay, you are responsible for having enabled invalid products at this step of the supply chain. So this is something where we combined IoT, we combined together here with the blockchain solution along the different steps of the supply chain. Maybe Paweł, you can show the next slide to see this supply chain simplification. So here you see it with a QR code. If you don't want, of course, you can hide the QR code using RFID, so you don't even need, you cannot tamper with the QR code itself if you want. And along the different steps of the supply chain, you can really be sure that you cannot tamper, you cannot add forced drugs or lower quality products. And then via smart contract, you can enforce that it's really valid and they all share the same data, so they know at which step there has been tampering or no tampering. So that at the end, in the pharmacy, you really have the valid product. You see, so that's a 200 million cost right now in this industry. And there it made sense to also combine it with IoT. And of course, that's the first solution. You can extend. You can say, for instance, I want that my drug remain in a certain temperature range, or I don't want they cannot move. You know. So if let's say there is the road is quite tricky, or there is a problem on the road, or let's say it's on a ship and the conditions are not ideal, you can do the same. You can put thresholds, and as soon as the temperature where the drug is held is not fulfilling the compliance standard, automatically via smart contracts, you need to pay. So the responsible need to pay. And you cannot go to an insurer and say it was not my fault, it was some corruption happening or some issue. Automatically, the responsible party has to pay in this network. You see? So you can add this kind of feature to this solution. Add functionalities, add parameters that you take into account in this solution that is track and trace along the supply chain. And this is just here for drugs. You have many other examples. But it's really some example that is not, it was a POC and now they're putting into production. So great to see it coming to life. And Etrieb has been really innovative also before manufacturing this kind of solution. So the other use case, it's thanks to the cloud. That's and then last thing for the database, it's really it's an arguable thing. Let's say we can put public information in or use blockchain as a timestamp machine, but any private data, it's better to keep it off chain, to secure it appropriately, and to not put it on the blockchain itself. It's really just sometimes as a timestamp. But that's why it's not a full-fledged, and it's not, especially in healthcare, not good to use it as a database. But it's been debate.
As you
yes.
apply blockchain to healthcare, do you mean that private data better not to use blockchain?
Yes.
But in healthcare, every data of patients is private data. And where's the security? There should be trust, ultimate trust.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about blockchain as secure transition of data.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not for storage, but for changes.
Yeah.
You can hash, for instance, data. So you don't have the data, you have to hash. And if you change the underlying data, okay, then you can see that the hash has changed, and then you cannot verify. And indeed, then you can ensure that the trust doesn't rely on one institution that is your data, but is distributed on the blockchain without having this, as you said, private data on the blockchain itself. That's how you would build it.
Yeah.
As a solution. And this is why also the real shift will be towards patients, users, having their own data, having their own access to the data, fully encrypted, and they decide to share it with what institution they want to share it. They know exactly where is the data, for what it is used, and not the data that is owned by another institution, they don't know, right? That's the big issue today, is that the user needs to be at the center. The patient needs to be at the center. And this, indeed, can only be solved by decentralized identity. That's for sure. And that leads us to the second use case. So where today, there are a few numbers that are interesting. So 97% of people, when they go to any medical institution or any intermediary, they want that there is data so that they have the data present, that the doctor they go knows about the data, about their health. They expect this today. But at the same time, and that's quite funny, almost 90% of the mistakes that happen in the health sector, so it's because of some mistake between people. You operated the left leg instead of the right one because they confused two people. And of course, this doesn't happen only once out of X times, but statistically it happens. And this is the majority of the mistakes today. The problem is that for these electronic health systems that are siloed, well, if I start to share more, there will be more breaches. And those breaches cost billions today in terms of fines. So we have this kind of issue today in the health sector. How do we share the data between different players to have more efficient process and that the user has an entire footprint wherever the country I go to for my health region, but at the same time, how do I keep it compliant and I keep it secure? And this is where blockchain, implemented in a clever way, not as a database per se, but in a system we just discussed, can be an answer. And that's the use case we're working on, and it's really, this is more something not like this case that exists. It's at the premises. It's more at the testing phase. And sometimes we know that it's quite easy as SharePoint, it's great technology of Microsoft. Well, what we discovered is that you can just put immutability to it, so that you cannot tamper with the records. Let's say we had some case of, imagine you have the AIDS records in some African nation. And of course those records are tampered all the time, because you don't want that people know in your village that you have AIDS, and you don't want the authorities to flag you. You don't want to be killed for that. And another time but you need to be treated. So this data gets tampered a lot. So we just discovered that using just this let's say this security on SharePoint could address this issue. So no need of a crazy blockchain solution in this case. It was us having a data hub, securing it, and then putting some identifier on some ledger. And sometimes the ledger was not even needed. So that's also what we discovered here, that simple solutions. So blockchain is more like, it opens a discussion in this industry without yet being the full solution that we can implement right away. So this is why this use case is quite hard to address. Another issue is also that in a few years, every day, each of us is going to generate 1 gigabyte of personal data. So because of the wearables, because of all the tests that we have, alone our smartphone knows so much about us. What we eat, how healthy we are, do we do fitness, are we active? So the problem is not just, is blockchain ready, it's that the overload of data and the lack of governance, that's really the issue today. So this is why this use case that's going to be vital is really going to be key, linked to decentralized identity, where we put the patient, the user, in the center of his own health. And he can then choose to what, in what consortium, to what actors, to what insurance do I give the data, and how do I get retributed if I give it? So new business models that will emerge out of it. So decentralized identity is going to be the key in this new configuration.
Maybe the simple solution in this case would be anonymization of the patient's data.
Yes.
So I own my data, but it's up to me whom I'm giving this data.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm giving them, I am keeping them anonymous. So I protect myself from, for example, the set user, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The problem is always a step from personal data to how do we anonymize? Am I sure that it's really anonymized? And the problem is, one institution has maybe done this effort to anonymize the data, so that we don't know that it's your data, we just use it after. But then they share it with partners, because they have to. And then it's where, that's why, again, it's the user that needs to be really at the center. And that, at a certain period of time, gives this kind of data to this institution to do this kind of tests. And after, that's also something in IT, it's practice, that if you don't need access, the least access possible. If the institution doesn't need the data, it doesn't need to own it, doesn't need to have it in the backend, it's erased. And I need to keep a trace. so that I don't know that this data has been shared in an Excel to a doctor, is shared to another institution. So this is why we come to the same issue that in terms of identity, it should be at the center of the user. And this will be the center of decentralized applications, living not in the servers of a hospital. And often they live on the server, the local server. I can plug with my USB key and I have all your data. That's how it exists today, not even encrypted. But it lives in decentralized applications that use as a cache your data. You give access at a certain moment, and then you can just you see what they take, and you can withdraw the access. And those applications don't have a backend. They live off the cache. They don't have a backend in the servers of the hospital. And the cache, it's the data you have in your data hub that you, for instance, in your smartphone, that is fully protected. Let's say now, and this is another thing where this is edge computing, this example. Another example, before getting too technical, I will finish on that, but it's, imagine you need to do some analytics, right? Some research. And I have your data, and suddenly I need to share with another institution the same data. Because pooling the data, I will get new insights. How it happens today, we pay consultants to take proxies from different sources, and they price something to give me an overview about other pieces of data I'm missing for my own model. That's something insane. So using also confidential computing, so encryption and use, so while the information is processed, it's still encrypted. And this we can do from the hardware, having special SGX, for instance, Intel does it. So that in the future, let's say you have your personal data, and you can enable two players to use this data to pull it for the model, but still not to see the plain text, to know it's you and to not have really access to your personal information. So this are the kind of information, the kind of innovation that is coming in this field. So that's really the other use case. And another information that is to understand also why we're putting emphasis on different partners. For instance, you mentioned Novartis and Laroche, and I cannot say anything special, but how many would you say the number of IT partners working on their backend? Would you say it's more than 50 or less than 50? Who would say it's less than 50? Who would say it's more than 50? Well, it's actually more than 200. So 200 just on the backend. So you see, those parties just need to handle the backend. And we're not talking about all the research institutions, about the non-profit, about the research. So you see this amount of players, they need to handle of the same data. And you imagine with the legacy systems we have today, the number of potential breaches. It's a surprise we don't have more breaches. So and this is also, again, why we need to put the user at the center of the ownership of the data. Coming back into decentralization.
Yeah, I think if it will be still some more questions, so yep. Henry will be on the panel also together with me and Paul, which will be afterwards Oksana and Hakan, so we can discuss and afterwards to not keep you that long. So yeah, do you have anything to add?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Henry, for the great presentation. Good that there are still some discussions. So I see that there are some people that are quite connected with the corporate. So very nice to bring you here. And right now I would like to go more in the drugs and pharma and how it's going on also in the corporate, but as well on the more dynamic startup approach. So on the stage, the Paul Kolhaas from Molecule, that is also the partners of the events, the product of one company, the Linux Labs, that I'm also very thankful for the help in the promotion and being engaged in the event. There's also Devon, the CEO of the company, so we can talk more after the presentation if you like it. So I will give the voice to Paul for the innovation solution that came from the Cape Town in South Africa and mixed with the Swiss approach and a little with the US approach. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Paweł. Thanks for bearing with me at this late hour. So we're going to put drugs on the blockchain. That's essentially what we're building. The current drug development system is really broken. And I think contrary to a lot of the presentations that we saw today about private networks and enterprise consortiums, we believe that we need entirely new approaches in the drug development and life sciences industry. So just bear with me as I try to click through. Okay, cool. So what are we building? Just a quick summary. So Molecule Protocol enables the distributed research, development, and funding of chemical IP. It's a super broad market. Any kind of new chemical intellectual property that is developed is essentially an asset. So you're always talking about an asset, a patent that is being developed in a new biotech firm, in a lab at a university, or in a large pharma company. And developing these assets is very expensive. So what we're building is a distributed Web 3.0 marketplace. So imagine a marketplace with two sides. You have funders, researchers. On the other side, you have the drug developers. For price discovery, funding, and curation of drugs and therapeutics. And what we're really trying to do is distribute the high cost, risk, and fundamentally the ownership of drug development. So our entire approach to blockchain is very different. We think if blockchain has succeeded in any way, it's one in distributing ownership of assets. Very easy, very clear use case. Distributing those ownerships on public ledgers, and then funding those assets. Cool, so maybe some background to myself and our company. So we've been in software development and blockchain consulting since early 2016. We've always been extremely deep in the Ethereum ecosystem. We're today a team of 18 developers, product designers, scientists, entrepreneurs. We have offices in Basel, in Cape Town, and in Berlin. Our company originally came out of South Africa. I spent some time there, but I'm originally Swiss. Studied in St. Gallen. We recently moved to Basel to work very closely with the pharma industry and the biotech industry there. And our focus today is really on healthcare and on token engineering. Before we went deep down into the pharma and healthcare rabbit hole, we previously worked with Deloitte, PwC. We did a large pilot with SBB in Switzerland, we completed in August last year. So we did the whole enterprise like development thing until we realized that we really wanted to build something that wasn't in the enterprise space but affected it. Yeah, cool. So what is the issue with drug development? So drug development is getting more expensive. It costs on average, the industry average is $2.5 billion to develop a drug. Then it takes 10 to 15 years to bring it to market. And it's extremely risky. So the success rate of bringing any drug to market is about 0.02%. Now imagine when the iPhone came out, the first iPhone, that is less time than it takes to bring one drug to market. So think how slow the innovation wheel actually turns in pharma. Like, since the first iPhone came out, like all of our lives have literally probably gone upside down with Facebook, all of the apps we use, the whole Android, open source software development. It's an entire new market. And in that same time, pharma barely brings one new drug to market. Okay. So at the same time, that would all be good and fair if the industry was making money, but it's increasingly getting to a point where it's losing money. So this is the return on investment in pharma R&D is hitting a critical point in 2020 when the internal return is hitting 0%. So essentially all pharma companies, or the industry as a whole, would be better off just cutting R&D. Because economically, it's too risky to keep developing drugs. So imagine all of these giant pharma companies with their labs, their shareholders should be telling them, guys, cut the R&D because it's losing money. What does that mean though? It means slowly the pipeline of drugs is drying up. But there's much bigger problems in the pharma industry, namely that over the past 20 years, the industry has optimized towards revenue-producing drugs. We see this mostly in the US, where currently there's a huge opioid crisis. Like last year alone in the United States, 50,000 people died from opioid prescription overdoses. So these are drugs sold by pharma companies that are essentially causing public health crises now. And it's because the industry has over years and years really engineered towards stuff that creates consumers, but that doesn't actually treat patients. And there's a famous article from Goldman Sachs that came out in 2016 titled, "Is curing patients a sustainable business model?" And the answer is it's not. Like, if you have a drug that actually cures your patient, better not bring it to market because you're shooting yourself in the foot. So there's we have these really perverse incentives in this industry. But so why is it this way? So our kind of fundamental notion is that drug development and pharmaceutical development is where software development was 30 years ago. It's extremely expensive, it's monopolistic, So there's no information sharing between these companies. The capital requirements are extremely high. Research and development is entirely closed source. Everything happens under NDA. There's a lack of collaboration across the industry. It's an industry full of secrecy. And it's very similar to when open source software really started coming onto the market in the early, like in the mid-90s, late 90s, when Linux launched. And Linux launched as an answer against Microsoft. So Microsoft was threatening the market in enterprise software, making the entire market proprietary. And so pharma companies today with a patent system act in a very similar way. It's an extremely proprietary, secretive market. But what happens if it's like, okay, I think it's like some of the biggest software companies in the world today trying to develop their own blockchains and trying to compete with the open source movement that is happening in blockchain at the same time. I think the previous speaker hit it really well when he said like, good software development today is being driven by open source initiatives. And so all of these companies that we see today, GitHub, Linux, Android, Google open source, these are all open source software initiatives that have driven entirely new business models. Now, why can't we do open source pharma? There's actually a big industry initiative called Open Source Pharma. It's a consortium of researchers from different universities that are developing drugs for tropical diseases. So typical drugs that are underserved by big pharma already. So we have malaria, mycetoma. But the problem is as soon as you do drug development open source, there's no commercial model. So only if I can patent something and then I determine its pricing, can I get enough money to later on pay back investors to pay for all of the development. So it's a catch-22. So I need the patent. But the patent also creates all of these problems. It's very difficult to price patents. It makes everything closed source. So where does blockchain in this come in? Blockchain comes in, remember what I said in the beginning, distributing ownership. So the fundamental thing of what we're doing and building with Molecule is distributing and fractionalizing ownership in pharmaceutical IP, which essentially enables you to create markets around drugs. Think of the companies that we trade on the Swiss stock exchange or any other stock exchange. Think of the tokens that you might trade if you're interested in crypto. We're essentially building decentralized markets for drugs and for new therapeutics. Cool, how are we doing this? So there's a new practice that has been in the blockchain space for the past 8 weeks. Started coming up in the end of 2017, a practice called token engineering. And then we're using two base principles of token engineering. One is curation markets and the other are non-fungible tokens. The base notion of the curation markets is reducing information asymmetry through tokenized incentive games or through creating game theoretic system design. In essence, to make it really easy, and I'll get into what this looks like in the smart contracts now, market participants put their money where their mouth is. They stake value and attention into markets they will believe will be more valuable. And the market's currency is a proxy for attention and rewards early adopters. And the last one is, have any of you ever hacked or owned one of these? Yeah? Yeah. Cool, 1 or 2. Nice. So this is a CryptoKitty. CryptoKitties went mainstream as well at the end of 2017, early 2018. They actually managed to break the Ethereum public network because people were trading CryptoKitties like crazy. A CryptoKitty is essentially, it's a token that is non-fungible, so it's non-divisible. Normally tokens are always divisible. So this is a non-fungible unique token that has a unique picture of a digital cat attached to it. So if you own that token, you're the only person in the world that can own this digital cat. It's like Pokemon trading on steroids on the blockchain. But so what we can do is we can attach anything to this. And now what is the whole notion of a patent? The whole notion of a patent is unique ownership, or of IP is unique ownership. So the blockchain doesn't care if you're a cat or like a fusion reactor or a molecule. It's just data that is attached to unique ownership. So we're taking these two concepts and we're combining them. I want to tell you guys about another concept very quickly, about a concept called token bonding curves. So these are essentially new market-making mechanisms. And imagine, so this is a typical microeconomic supply curve, and we put this supply curve into a smart contract that issues tokens. So you can see here the price per token is bonded to a number of tokens in circulation and defined by a slope formula. In this case, it's a quadratic curve. We can make this curve look in any kind of way. And essentially what we do, what the smart contract does, we can trade with it. We can say, I can send it 100 Swiss francs and it will give me back 100 tokens, for example. And then the next person comes and sends it 100 Swiss francs and the next person only gets back 50 tokens, and so on and so forth. So the contract trades with us up and down on this curve. And this is now a measure of attention, because the more attention people pay to whatever this curve represents, the higher the point in the curve. So we have two mechanisms now. So maybe just to come back to something. So we use this to measure attention in assets. So first we take a specific asset, we prove its unique ownership, and then we put it into a smart contract that can measure the attention in the asset. The same way that Instagram measures attention in likes. So like up down, in this case we're measuring attention in financial markets, like buying and selling. Cool. So how does drug development and innovation actually work today? So this is the typical pharmaceutical development process. You have a discovery phase, then you have preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The capital requirements during these phases increase exponentially. Remember that slope we had? And so these are like typical innovation management processes in a company. So initially you have a lot of different potential outcomes and targets. Same for here. And the drug development process works entirely the same. But now what happens within companies today, and companies need to do all of this work by themselves. So someone said Roche earlier, imagine at the moment this entire process is being done by Roche. But everyone is kind of scrambling to get the same good molecules onto the market. And there's a lot of M&A that happens in kind of these phases until a big player really comes in and carries it through. But what if we distributed that entire process? So think of all of these individual things as molecules that are being developed, new drugs that are being brought to market. Right now, the entire value chain is within one company. What if we took that value chain and we put it onto a public market, where all the different market participants are essentially doing this work? And then we get to something really cool. So this is essentially using the same mechanism again, but with a different curve that essentially maps the value process in pharma. You have the drug discovery phase, preclinical, where you have most projects die here. But if you had a whole open system paying attention to how things are being developed, drug development could become a lot cheaper and a lot faster, and essentially be more like calling an Uber with your phone instead of calling up the cab company and asking if they can have someone come through. So what is Molecule? I said this in the beginning, it's a Web 3.0 marketplace in exchange for intellectual property. So you would have early stage, you could have pre-patent, patented, even unpatented markets coming onto the protocol. Then once here, we move to that CryptoKitty stage. So here we've made our CryptoKitty, then we move the CryptoKitty onto a market. Now anyone can start trading attention in these markets. So then you could have patients essentially paying a lot of attention to new valuable therapeutics that they're interested in. You can have universities engage directly with new drugs that are being developed. You could have biotech investors, institutional pharma VCs, private equity funds come in and interact with these markets, and finally pharma companies. So we're in talk with a lot of these different stakeholder groups, primarily with universities and large pharma at the moment. For large pharma, a system like this is really interesting because it helps them get things into their pipeline earlier on. For universities, it's really interesting because that's where a lot of the base innovation happens early on. But it's very difficult actually for universities to commercialize any of the innovations that they make. So where we see blockchain can play a huge role in the life sciences industry is in actually opening up and redefining the value chain. And instead of just saying like, let's make processes more efficient, we can also say let's design entirely new processes. Yeah, I think that was my last slide. I don't want to go into too deep. Thanks anyone. If you have time for one question. Yeah?
How would it be improving the success rates of the drug development?
How would
the success rate of the drug development improve by providing marketplace?
So I think once you have a shared ownership of something, there's a lot more incentive to drive it forward. So a lot of drugs, if you go back to this pipeline, a lot of drugs get stuck here and here because the companies funding them run out of funding themselves because like there's budgetary restrictions. A lot of very promising drugs and therapeutics essentially never move past this stage because of prioritization within companies. So there's a lot of dormant IP that isn't developed, and it's very hard to move things on through the pipeline.
The details of the development would be very secret. It's very confidential information. What would make someone buy into that without knowing any details about their IP? Could be hype and nothing else.
Yeah, so ideally now the whole process becomes much more open. So now all information that you have about that drug essentially becomes tradable information. I can now be a researcher, I can buy shares in a new drug, I become a co-owner, I can create a data set about that, I can publish my research. If the research is good, there's probably more capital flowing into that market, because now it proves that this drug is undervalued. So it's like if I can suddenly publish my research results, and if they're good, it drives up the price of the drug. So now there's an incentive for data about the drug development to be open source.
Typically it's published.
And you're absolutely right. Once it enters clinical trials, but before that, it's a fact-finding mission to even bring it to clinical trials. So then you have animal trials, essays. Yeah.
Do you want to be public to be sponsor of clinical research in this way? Are you telling that you want public to be sponsor of clinical research?
Essentially, to a certain degree, yeah.
Okay.
Or that you can find entirely new financing ways for clinical research.
Okay.
Yeah.
But actually then your target is not the big names.
Later on, yes. So in the downstream process, because anyone, essentially what could happen is you could have a drug that is turning out to be very promising, and it's now trading at a market cap of say 50 or 100 million, and then Pfizer comes in or anyone else and says, this really fits into our portfolio, we want to make a buyout offer. They can come in and then essentially buy out the drug. So then the marketplace just serves as a discovery platform. You could also say, hey, we're developing a new HIV vaccine and it's really promising, and this should never be it should never belong to big pharma. And then essentially, I think one of the previous speakers as well mentioned the term called DAOs, so decentralized autonomous organizations. If you go way sci-fi, you can essentially say, let's make drug development fully public, and let's have drugs as public utilities instead of being owned by large corporations. But it's a little bit future music. Yeah.
But this would make it necessary that all the information needed to go through those fixes, I do this since 20 years now, are available as data.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
Wouldn't that be great though?
Yeah, but that's just complex. So you have always just maybe 50% of the data available, and the relationship between the data is not known.
Yeah.
So how to put this in a blockchain?
So we are not putting the data in the blockchain. So the data can stay where it wants to stay. There will be though an incentive for the data now to become public, because you can now have a bunch of shareholders and they want to know more and more about the drug. You also have an incentive to store new research that is being created in the public. For example, there's a big problem with negative data, especially out of clinical trials that sometimes isn't published. In this case, negative data becomes valuable, because the same way that I can go long on a market, I can also go short on a drug. If I know that this drug is actually bad, and I've had a lot of bad results, I can undertake to bring the negative data into the public to show that this drug shouldn't go to market. So it increases the whole innovation around it.
As the data, the one data point is not independent, it's kind of the position between other data is necessary.
Yeah.
So if you just put the single data into a kind of cloud, you cannot say if it's good or bad because it's dependent on the whole setup.
Yeah.
So sorry, we just need to cut the questions.
One more question, and then I think the people are ready for a drink, I imagine.
No, because we just need to go for the last presentation and the very short panel and to start the networking. To not take you that long. We just also excuse you for one short photo with all speakers, because Chris from Swissborg needs to go. So yeah, really, cool. Someone needs to give the very short question, or we can move to the.
It's fine. I'll be here afterwards. Just come talk to me if you have more questions.
Unless you have anything more to add on the presentation.
That was it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
So just our would like to take on the stage all of the speakers to take the picture together because Chris from Swissborg is going unfortunately to Lausanne. Yeah, still Switzerland.
Yes, sorry, my fault.
But, yeah. So he will leave some business cards here so you can approach him. And you also. Okay. Okay. Or we can take with if anyone doesn't have any problems with the link and the image, so someone can take the photos of us with the whole public from our side.
Yeah, sorry, I have to go back on the other side of the rotating button. I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
You're already in contact with Microsoft?
Like ages ago, yeah. I know you're head of blockchain based out of New York.
Oh, what's his name again? So
I have it on my phone, right?
Can I join you as I'm on a panel?
Yes,
At
exactly.
At least for kind.
because we also work with public protocols.
Yeah?
Of course.
Yeah. You do a lot of work with public.
No, it doesn't work.
The block. Yeah.
Because we need also the technology, we need infrastructure.
Yeah.
We need to build into an application.
Yeah.
Let's just go.
Yeah, it's cool. Gives hope, you know.
So we have
Gives hope.
Yeah.